So our first speaker today is going to be Paul JOYCE, and he will be talking about big data, which is meaningless without communication. Paul is co-founder and CEO of Geckoboard, a London startup-based SaaS company that makes it easy for any business to see all of their key metrics in a very elegant real-time dashboard. Geckoboard connects to popular web services out of the box. Their API makes it easy for customers to include data from the open sources as well. They've got the team of 12 people. They're here in London. They support over 1,800 customers all over the world.
Right, so I'm talking today about data communication, okay, and how it relates to big data. Obviously all of these systems that produce vast amounts of information need to be interpreted at some stage, and human beings come into the process somewhere. So we, a quick kind of summary on Geckoboard actually. So what we do is we pull together data from all these different places and put them up into one dashboard, and we were mindful from the very beginning that we wanted to design to be easy to digest at a glance. Okay, so it's not about slicing, dicing, drilling down data. It's about understanding data very quickly for the purposes of motivation, accountability, all that kind of thing. 70% of our customers put them up on big screens. We've got a mobile app. It's about staying in touch with the data that matters to you. So we've learned a lot about data communication from speaking to our customers and from the various design iterations. And I just wanted to take the opportunity today to maybe talk about some of the more obvious things, some of the pitfalls, and lay some foundations for how you, once you've got all of this data, how you present it to make it readable by human beings. So data communication, it's actually a lot trickier than you might think. Lots of elephant traps to fall into. So first things first, lots of data. It's a great thing. IBM surveyed a whole bunch of CEOs from different size organizations. 54% of them said that they distinguished 54% of the outperforming CEOs said that they distinguished their organizations by ensuring increased access to data. So more people in the organization having greater access to data. So data is a good thing. It can be very exciting. You've got huge amounts of information. You can see lots of opportunity for things being done faster, more elegant, and more fun. Being able to understand your business greater. It's a very exciting thing. And there's lots of great examples of where huge amounts of data can be highly beneficial. So decoding the human genome, and I need to look at the numbers here, involves analyzing 3 billion base pairs. Now, when this was done in 2003, it took 10 years to do. With advances in analysis and computing power, this now takes 3 weeks. It's incredibly, it's a fascinating way of looking at that data. Something that took 10 years can now be done in 3 weeks. Huge amount of information. It's also used by the huge amounts of information used in the financial industry, which is my background prior to founding a startup. Used for fraud detection, sentiment analysis, market prediction, all this kind of stuff. Retail, like Amazon handles millions of transactions every day. Walmart handles over 1 million customer transactions every hour in the US. This generates massive amounts of information. And with all that information, you do very useful stuff. The NSA could probably tell you what you had for breakfast. Right. So that's all great. However, in this same survey, 71% of CMOs, Chief Marketing Officers, interviewed said they were unprepared to manage the big data explosion. So that can suddenly seem very overwhelming. You've gone from having something that's a lot of fun, exciting, to oh dear, what happens now? So all of our organizations are generating data, lots of data all the time. It could be coming from infrastructure logs, performance monitoring tools, product usage, applications, analysis, third-party tools, web, mobile analytics, CRM systems, all that kind of thing. And when the output of that data, when the data is taken, and I'm sure some of the other speakers will allude to this today, and fed into automated systems that can then interpret that data, spit something out, and change some behavior based on that, That's great. It works dandy, but the problem comes when you try to condense vast amounts of information for humans to interpret, and this is, this is a data communication issue. Okay, we've got the data. How do we present it to people so that they can do something with it? So data, depending on your organization, data can get communicated in lots of different ways. It's probably worth giving you a little bit of background on what I used to do. I used to work for investment banks here in the city, designing building data warehouses. These are dimensionally modeled databases, taking vast amounts of information from trading systems, CRM. Every night we do batch processes, sticking it into a Kimball or Inman modeled data warehouse. Somebody would come along with an enterprise tool like Business Objects or Cognos or ClickView or something like that, and they'd build reports off that thing. We used to affectionately call them flower arrangers. This is back in the ignorant days. We used to take this data and try and make it pretty. Those analysts would then use these tools to drill in with maybe a broad set of assumptions, try to slice and dice the data, find different ways of interpreting it, get different hypotheses and test them against the data, and then eventually the product of that was to spit it out into an Excel spreadsheet or one of the beautiful reports that these systems generated. I say beautiful. I did a search for business object dashboards in Google. These were the first images. They're an abomination, frankly, an eyesore. I'm not really sure how people are meant to interpret data from that. We'll go into this in a little bit. But that was the outcome of all of this processing. It was somebody somewhere would be landed with this, or a PDF report, or an Excel spreadsheet. And now this isn't a problem just with those big enterprise tools. You also see the same sort of things with modern software as a service, supposedly dynamic, kind of agile businesses. There's Salesforce, for example, not much better. In fact, arguably worse. It's again, each of these, we're meant to get something from that, and it becomes very difficult. And all of these reports introduce cognitive barriers to interpretation. In other words, they limited our ability to be able to understand what was going on because of the way they're designed. And this is down to the way our brains have evolved to interpret visual cues around us. We're fantastic at seeing patterns, spotting trends, and spotting anomalies. If you're interested in finding out more about this, there's a book called Information Visualization, Perception for Design by Dr. Colin Ware. And he talks a lot about how our visual cortex is just this fat pipe to the cognitive area of our brain. And if you can design with that in mind, respectful of your visual cortex, that all of us have, we've evolved to be able to use this very, very quickly. If you're respectful of that, then you actually get a vast amount of information into your head very quickly. If you don't, the upshot is crappy reports that actually take a long time to understand. Because they take a long time to understand, people don't go to them, and it becomes less and less used. Every BI department that I worked in, no matter what the institution, whether it was telecommunications companies, financial institutions, government agencies, they were all battling against this idea that BI uptake was poor in their organisation. How could they do more? Well, you can do more by making it easier to understand data. Now, what I'm going to do is run through a few slides. This is actually taken from a website called Perceptual Edge. It's the website of Stephen Few, who's another. He wrote a book called Information Dashboard Design. If you're interested in it, it's very highly recommended. What I'm going to do with this is basically show there's a quiz on there. We'll do it real quick and see how we can design data better. So question one, which of these graphs makes it easier to determine whether mid-cap US stock or small-cap US stock has the greater share. Now, on the left-hand side, we have this beautiful pie chart, lots of colors. On the left-hand side, it's just a plain single color, ranked in order of the stock portfolio breakdown. So immediately, I think all of us would be able to say, right, well, if we're comparing mid cap and small cap, I mean, that's so much easier here than looking up this. There's turquoise, and God help you, we're colorblind. And there's that one. Yeah, which one? Yeah, okay. Maybe that's right. So here, the lesson here is really our brains haven't been kind of designed to process data that's presented radially at angles. We're much better at comparing straight lines, and don't use unnecessary color. On the subject of pie charts, I'm going to go off into a mini rant. Sir Steve, His Holiness, presenting at an Apple keynote speech here. Some of you may have seen this before. So here's a pie chart showing the US smartphone market share. We can pretty plainly see that the leader is RIM, Research and Measurement. That was some time ago, obviously. And who's in second place? Green or purple? Well, the way it's presented, it would look like green, right? You'd say, well, Apple doing very well, and they're second place, and other are in third place. So here are the numbers. Apple are actually in third place, okay? And what's happened is that, first of all, pie chart, again, comparing data in angles, very, very difficult for us. He's also applied a 3D effect, so that the bottom of the pie chart is now coming towards you, so it looks bigger. So that's pretty dark side. That's actually how the pie chart should look. You can see there, there's very little difference in those two kind of values, but yeah. Anyway, pie charts are plain evil. Don't use them. Probably under any circumstance. That's a hard and fast rule. There we go. All right, which of these are easier to read? Well, this one here has got some really jazzy 3D effects to it. But what the hell's happening in June? I have no idea. I have no idea. But look at this, nice and simple. There we can just have a look up in June and see who's first, second, and third. So the lesson of the day here is don't use unnecessary 3D effects. They really don't work. It's pretty poor. Here's another one. Which of these two tables is easier to read? I might be tempted to say, well, this one, because it's got the zebra stripes, you can see you can separate each line out. Actually, there's only 6 columns here, so being able to scan across there is actually really easy. What they've got here is contrast issues. They've got bolded on the bottom line. Again, I've counted 3 different typeface sizes here, 2 in this one. So lesson of the day is don't use unnecessary adornments, which makes it easier to focus on the pattern of change through time. Okay, column graphs I love, but actually, if you're looking at patterns of data through time, the line chart's great. Okay, you can very quickly digest that. You see that as one thing. You compare that against the other thing. Whereas this, you try to interpret. So take interpretation out when you can. This one, personal favorite. Again, column charts. One of these inaccurately kind of displays the data, and this is a cardinal sin when doing a column chart. Start from 0 for crying out loud. Otherwise, look, there's a 4,000. There's a difference of 4,000 here between the top and the bottom, and look, it's minuscule. It's not several times bigger. So yeah, column charts. Be wary of that one. My eyes. This one here, again, no joking. I mean, a good proportion. Some would say as much as 25% of men are colorblind to some extent. So when you have a scale, so this one here is varies in intensity and saturation. This one here, it's all the same intensity, all the same saturation. If you were colorblind looking at this, it'd be very hard to discern one color from another. And again, the question is, which is find the ones that have the positive growth. So that's the dark one here. You can very quickly pick that out. Whereas brown, so look, it becomes a lot harder. So proper scales, hue and intensity, not just random colors. Okay, it's a great one. Sticking too much stuff onto a chart, and again with the 3D and the all that hullabaloo. What's this value down here? Nobody knows. Again, very easy. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't necessarily simplify the hell out of things so that it becomes hard to discern what you're trying to do. And the last couple actually. So again, proper labeling. So this one here, got the label up there. It's supposed to, we're conditioned in the Western world certainly to read left to right, not down to up. And so this becomes a lot easier to read. And then we've got overuse of color here. And again, very high intensity saturation. This one here, I'm sure you'll agree, is a lot easier to read. And then the last point, how do you see the areas of poor performance more quickly? This one here just shows you what you need to see. This is, again, overuse of color. It's very tempting to do it. So to finalize, I'd just like to run through, I know I'm slightly over, run through just the golden rules when you're presenting data, particularly large amounts of information. Forget about chart junk, gradients, distracting elements, pictures, whatever else. Please, no animations. Again, they just distract from the core message. Proper use of color, contrast, and scale where you can. Rein it in. Think about people who are maybe visually impaired and or can't see color. When you're designing a dashboard, lots of elements on it, be mindful of the fact that you don't want a load of different information being displayed in similar information displayed in different ways. Each element needs to kind of correspond to the elements around them. Use lines, not angles, whenever possible. Speed gauges are terrible. Try look at a bullet graph, for example, instead. It's a very effective means of communication. And whatever you do, don't use pies. So that's it. Open to any questions. Yeah.
Has anyone used a 3D bar chart since 1986? Really?
Seriously, yeah. We see it all the time. I mean,
I work with data a lot, and I've never seen apart from in a demo.
So what tools do you use?
PowerPoint and Excel. I mean, the worst cases.
Yeah. So you're looking at tools like Business Objects or ClickView. I don't know if you've come across those.
Yeah, I don't do that sort of. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, they do. They use that. I mean, certainly when I left, my last kind of banking role was in 2010, and they're abundant. People still use them. Yeah, no doubt.
Some people use these charts intentionally to display, like Steve Jobs' example.
Yeah.
He wanted to show that, well, Apple probably has the second biggest chunk, but in reality it didn't.
Yeah, so data, sort of it's lying with data.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Numbers are like people. If you torture them enough, they'll tell you anything, right?
Okay, so you're saying it's justified if you want to lie with your data. Okay, all right, yeah, I'll buy that.
I use pie charts all the time for continuous integration reports for development, and that's because I've only got two colors on it, red and green, and it shows you very quickly that you're 100%, and it feels good for the management that are consuming these, and it doesn't get more complicated than that, but I like that. Can I stick with my pie chart?
No. And so actually, there's a lot of kind of information out there about this. But your second point, it makes management feel good. That's actually something we hear a lot. We had a guy contact us last week, and he said, we really need gauges with multiple kind of needles on to visualize data. And we turned around and said, no, that's not going to happen. And he said, yeah, well, my client, he used to be a pilot. And he's really used to this kind of thing. Now, the reason we have these kind of radial the gauges particularly was because at the time when the cars, automobiles, and whatever else were invented, that was the only way to actually show it, because the engineering meant that you had to have some sort of radial display. Now we can do better. There's no need to be stuck in this kind of the constraints of the past, particularly when we're trying to ape them in a purely digital
So
display.
what should I use?
So just a column chart or a bar chart.
Okay.
Really simple. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a point to something to add on what you just said. It doesn't matter what the business customer thinks, it matters what his customers think.
Yeah, but there's a role. There's always a role to help people do a better job and to give them understanding. And what we found is actually if you take the time to explain why actually this is slightly better, okay, and the bullet graph is a great example of that, invented by Stephen Few as an alternative to gauges. If you take the time to explain that to someone, well, they feel empowered. Okay, people automatically think, oh, I want to see gauges, pie charts, all this kind of thing, because that is what that's what they've been conditioned to see. Okay, if you take the time to educate people, and the reason is pretty simple, because every time you put something that's round and needs to be interpreted, you're actually putting a cognitive barrier in the way of understanding that data. Every time, and the more cognitive barriers in the way of understanding that data, the less chance they are going to look at that data, the less chance they're going to look at that dashboard. So the end goal is actually you want people to be able to come back to it time and time again and grok that data quickly, almost instantly, at a glance. All right? If that's the purpose of these kind of things. If you want to do that, you can't do this other stuff. Yeah. I'll take one from the yeah.
So, as somebody who's still stuck in investment bank hell, how do you convince people that are used to looking at just, a wall of numbers on 6 screens
Yeah.
that actually this is a terrible way to understand things, and you only understand it because you've just been looking at that for years?
You can take 2 approaches. One is demoing something else, okay? Taking the time to and show them why. Or you can take the logical approach, and that's probably not going to work. All right? You can explain to them why, looking at 100 pieces of information, means that you can't use your short-term memory, which is available for like 5 pieces of information, plus or minus 1. And because of that, it takes you more time to interpret that. Because of that, you can't spot trends and anomalies and whatever else as easily. Whereas if you took those 100 pieces and put it into a time series chart, then that is 1 piece of information that your brain can get right into the cognitive area very, very quickly. So you can try that approach. Alternatively, but look, I feel your pain. I've met a lot of people who are very stuck in their ways and think that they wanted more. And that's the most common request I had when working in that world was, we want this, and we want that, we want that, and we want. And every time you go back to the business, they want more and more and more. I want to be able to tweak this. Can I change the colors here and whatever else? And the best analysts I've met, were few and far between, would actually resist and say, actually, no. This is what's good for you, and explain to them why and show them something that. But it's a hard sell. Come and join the dark side. Startups are always looking for good people.
Last question.
Yeah, last question. Sorry.
Hi. One of the main problems in terms of getting access to information and making sense of it is having the information in the right order. In the databases or your data warehouses, etc. So we work with a lot of pharmaceutical and healthcare companies, and one of their pet arguments is we don't have the time to organize this information for us to display it. And the moment you tell them that you can have a tool which can display it all, and it can make information consumption very easy, say we can pretty much save the same amount of time by just creating the usual reports, etc. that we do in customized format today. Is that something, a battle that you have already fought and won?
Look, I've heard it played out. Luckily, as a contract developer, I didn't actually get stuck into these kind of things. But no, honestly, some people will. So your question is ultimately that trade-off between doing some work up front and getting something a better system, or managing by getting by with what you have.
Yes.
Again, I don't envy you those conversations. All I can say is once you can get your data in a format that's easy to get at, easy to pull reports out and whatever else, it's a different world to these standard things. But it ultimately comes down to culture, and we have this idea of an informed business. The tools need to be there, the data absolutely has to be there, but culture has to be there. And if any of those things are missing, you're not going to have a business that uses data effectively.
So in your experience, have you found that culture to exist?
Oh yeah, and particularly at smaller companies. But we're seeing it. I mean, some of our customers are, Fortune 50 customers, and and we see it maybe not throughout the organisation, but in a department here, a department there, and it's gradually growing. It's gradually getting people more and more educated about this. But it's the culture exists definitely, and among startups, it's almost ubiquitous. But larger enterprises, it's certainly rarer.
Thank you.
All right, cheers. Thank you.